they're filling in a manhole, and he's there. Lord Jesus, the traffic here today. I got to get home. I got to cook supper. I said, buddy, we're going to be home in 6 minutes, man. Fucking relax. Right?
Get out of here. I told you, Mr. Drama.
I used to be a ladies' man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once, they used me.
Say bye-bye baseball.
My mother said it was naughty, I should kiss her goodbye. But I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very nice.
And the Lolly drops his glove, grabs Dalton. The benches are clearing.
Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly is brought to you by CoolBet. If you got a few extra bucks rattling around in your arse pocket, CoolBet Sportsbook will double your first deposit up to $200 when you use the bonus code DUSTUP. Head over to coolbet.com and get in on the fastest growing entertainment sector in the world. That bonus code again is DUSTUP, one word, all capital letters, DUSTUP. Well, here we are, folks. Episode number 3 of Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly. And Hilly, what a guest we got lined up today, Matt.
Another beauty, Mr. Kris Abbott, MC to my wedding.
Yeah, friggin' right. Great choice on that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, me and Kris go way back. We grew up in the same town, Portugal Cove, St. Phillips. We played our minor ball in Portugal Cove. You know, Kris is a couple years older than me, so I got to follow his ball career, his young hockey career, and we played a little bit in senior. And then Kris decided to switch gears totally and go into the broadcast game.
Yeah, what an incredible story. You know, he's one of the most well-spoken, intelligent people that we know. And what an inspiring story he has, from going really at a low point in his life to just picking himself up by the bootstraps, creating opportunities. Just a humble guy. But when you sit back and hear his story, you can't help but leave it feeling motivated and inspired.
Yeah, and the man can tell a story too. I guess he's been doing this for a while now, and I got lots of questions. I'm very interested in how he got to where he is right now, and a little fella from Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, now living up into 6. So it'd be nice to see how that change is doing for him, and we'll just catch up.
Yeah. We got a great episode here. You're going to hear all about his young days as a player in Newfoundland, growing up in a Newfoundland softball royal family, and then just an incredible story of hard work and perseverance to achieve your goals and on the broadcasting side of things. So without further ado, Kris Abbott.
Get him in here.
Abby, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, fellas. This is awesome, actually. I mean, first of all, we just haven't caught up in general in a while, with life getting in the way and things like that. I mean, Jason's got the full family going over in Newfoundland, and you and I live 35 minutes from each other, and the pandemic has shut down all the bad stuff we could get up to. And of course, you got Teddy running around and a small business. So, this is great. If this is what it takes for us to catch up and everybody gets to listen in, I think it's wonderful.
Oh, that's excellent, man. Yeah, that's the one thing we're really enjoying about this. Get caught up with guys that we want to see, but we haven't had an opportunity to see. You being definitely one on the top of the list for us there. But really excited to have you on as a guest. And just for the listeners out there, a little bit of history of our relationship. 3 of us from Newfoundland, like you said, we're 2 of us are transplanted, but grew up playing sports together. Fast pitch for sure. Back in the day when you were reigning king through all the minor ball, we were all trying to catch up to you and be. Everyone was kind of vying for second place in terms of being a pitcher, hitter, dual. Both sides of the field, and then we got to be teammates in senior, and then you got a really cool story on how you've kind of cemented yourself within the international softball stage on the broadcasting front. So that's something that we're really excited to hear about. But we got a lot of stories, a lot of Abby stories that we can get into. But how are things in general now in Ontario for you? Because you're a newfie through and through. What's it like living up downtown Toronto in the Big Smoke compared to St. John's, Portugal Cove area?
Yeah, to say that it's different is certainly an understatement, but I got to be honest, and Malala, you'll understand this, and anybody who's lived in a small town and moved to a bigger city, understands this as well. Although people have different perspectives and experiences, but I've absolutely loved the move to Toronto. When you grow up in Newfoundland, you watch the Blue Jays, you watch the Maple Leafs, you watch the Raptors, everything that happens in Toronto. Every wrestling event that comes to Toronto, and every concert that you want to see that doesn't come out east comes to Toronto. And I think, being a stone's throw away from the Rogers Centre and I'll always call it the ACC, but Scotiabank Arena, that doesn't get old for me yet. Like, I'll go out in my car and just drive down Bremner and look at these buildings and the CN Tower and be your typical Newfoundlander. Like, wow, this is crazy. This is my town now. This is where I live. So, I mean, there's been adjustments for sure, but it's all been completely positive. And I had, I had the experience living in Halifax for a while, so maybe that got me used to living outside of St. John's. But
Right.
There's the biggest thing for me is that growing up out east, there's this misconception, I think, that Toronto is cold and mean and everyone's an asshole and nobody will stop and say hi to you. And frankly, I've had the opposite experience. I've loved living in Toronto. I've found the experiences I've got to have. Listen, where we come from, everybody is white. Everybody is from England or Ireland or Scotland, right? And here, just the mix of cultures and the people you get to interact with and all the experiences you get to have and the expansion of what the world to be has been wonderful. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about living here. And I just can't wait for the day to come where, if I wake up in the morning and I want to stroll down and watch a game from the flight deck at Rogers Centre, I can do that. So these are all the things that growing up in Portugal Cove seem a world away, and now it's attainable. So that's pretty cool.
It's funny, man. Last time Ollie was home, I don't know when it was, a few years ago, and he was staying with me, of course, and we were out for a bite to eat, and we were finished up, and we were driving up Kenmount Road, and I was just flipping. Like, I was like, the fucking traffic here today. It's like just wailing on the horn. And I look over at Lolly, and he's just like shrugging his shoulders, shaking his head. What are you talking about? This is not traffic. You do not know traffic.
No, there's 20 cars in front of my Kenmount, and there's because they're filling in a manhole, and he's there. Lord Jesus, the traffic here today. I got to get home. I got to cook supper. I said, buddy, we're going to be home in 6 minutes, man. Fucking relax, right? But I'll tell you, well, my first experience coming up to Toronto. So when I moved up with my old job, got put up in the company housing, temporary housing, until you get settle away. And it's right down on Blue Jay Way in Front Street, right? So I don't know anything. I know that big building right there, okay, the Blue Jays play there, and that big tower, that's the CN Tower. Outside of that, I don't know anything. So I go out, jump in the car, and then I'm driving, right? And you're just saying the conception about Toronto being it's, okay, it can be cold. So right on. Anyway, I get in the car, I'm going to see what's it like. So I'm driving down the road, and anyway, I just start hearing the horns bumping at me. And I was like, I'm waving, hey, you guys, this is friendly, right? Am I in St. John's or what? And then next thing you know, the middle fingers are coming out, and then the horns they're laying on the horns a little bit longer. I said, man, what the fuck is your problem? And here I am going down the wrong way, down the one-way Richmond Street. I'm just driving down. Everyone's coming this way. First time, I'm just full on down the wrong way on Richmond Street like an idiot. Typical, just coming up out of Newfoundland, not knowing what to do. And here I am. I'm waving, and I'm flipping people off, ready to get out of the car and fight. But anyway, it didn't do much for my opinion of Toronto, and I'm sure it didn't do much of their opinion of Newfoundland either.
You're taking, yeah. I mean, for people who know Toronto downtown, there's, obviously it's super busy, but Richmond Street runs west only and Adelaide Street runs east only, and they're kind of parallel with each other and helps with the traffic. And I live on Queen Street East, and it's right where Richmond starts, and Adelaide and Richmond kind of intersect. And I also took a right turn onto Richmond Street. But I saw all the cars coming, and I managed to pull a real quick U-ey. But I can imagine that was quite the welcome. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to fuck with people and they're driving around here. That's the one thing. Like, if the light turns green and you don't go within 0.3 milliseconds, some asshole in a Lexus is beeping at you. But other than that, yeah, it's good.
We want to kind of take it back to your playing days a little bit. You were pitcher, top hitter on your team. You come from a softball family together. Hilly, I know you know that family in and out. I'll ask Hilly first. When you think back to growing up in, I call it the Kris Abbott era for us, what comes to mind for you?
Well, we were chatting earlier, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I knew Kris was coming on, and Kris is the first teammate I've ever had, and I remember the tournament. It used to be called the Peter, I think it was, maybe I don't remember it, Peter Boland Memorial, was it?
Peter Boland in Outer Cove.
Yeah. And you were the first person or first teammate I had to actually hit a home run over the fence. Maybe I was called up to your team for the weekend with Portugal Cove, St. Phillips.
I'm sure your dad got you on the team somehow, Hilly.
we were used to hitting inside the Parkers, and scoring on overthrows and this and that. But so I played with Kris, and it was the first time I've actually had a teammate that hit the ball over the fence. I was like, holy fuck. I was like, this guy can ball. I was like, this guy can play. And then he's pitching one game, he's playing second next game, batting third, and team captain, team leader, and all that stuff. But back then when I was a kid, and we'd always hear it, Kris Abbott, you got to go watch Kris Abbott play. And this is before I even knew who Colin Abbott was. So it's kind of what I remember growing up in Portugal Cove as a young fella.
Yeah, I remember seeing both of you guys in the paper. I'm out in the Placentia area. We get the Evening Telegram show up, and we only get to practice, so we get to see the games. Jason Hill pitched to win, or whoever, higher levels, whatever. Kris Abbott, da 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 da. I was like, oh Jesus, man, I bet you these guys are dickheads. But sure enough, you proved me wrong in that regard. But Abby, when you look back at your softball playing days in Newfoundland, what comes to mind for you?
Well, there's actually, when you put it that way, there's a little bit of a regret that it didn't work out for me better than it did. So when I was young, I hit puberty when I was like 11. Like I had a hairy chest when I was 12 years old. So hockey, softball, anything I did, I was generally better than the other kids because I was a fucking man. I was an adult, and I was playing with children, and that's the truth of the matter. Like I was bigger, I was stronger, I probably had better hand-eye. I came from a family that was super athletic. There's one thing you don't want to be in Newfoundland, and that's the next Abbott after Colin. That didn't work out. That was always tough to live up to. Yeah. And he grew to be like, 6, whatever he is. And I stopped at 5'7" 3/4. So
3/4, that boy.
So when Colin was picking off rise balls coming up in the zone, I was swinging over my head, so that, physics and biology came into play a little bit there. But as I'm actually a real good cautionary tale for parents or any athletes that are having a lot of success. I didn't have to put the work in, man. It came super easy to me. I didn't have to go take extra swings. I just showed up at the ballpark, like finished my fruit roll up, went up and smacked the ball around. Like it wasn't hard for me. Nothing was hard for me. I could throw, I could pitch, I could throw harder than everyone. I didn't know where the fuck it was going. I probably hit Hilly 100 times down in the ballpark in Portugal Cove. Had no idea where it was going. You got umpires in there when you're young, not even wearing any gear. Like I'd say the town of Portugal Cove, St. Phillips had to replace the backstop because of me at least 3 times. And you're throwing it from whatever, like 27 feet, right? You're right on top of the guy. Anyway, but it didn't come, it came super easy to me and I didn't have to work at it. And same thing with hockey. I was really, really good at hockey until Bantam and midget. And I was still good, but everyone else caught up to me and I didn't put the work in. And then on top of that, I found pizza and beer and women, and I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed the concept of going for a 2-kilometer run. Like that wasn't fun. I want to play video games and sit on my, and so that's how you get the physique that I'm rocking right now. But it was fun, man. It was fun, but it all came too easily. And I almost wish that it wasn't as easy as it was, because as the years went on, and I got, I was at this level, and then people caught up to me and people passed me, and I couldn't catch up. So it was fun, man. It was great. I had a great childhood. I was successful. It was awesome. But I buckled under the weight of the Abbott dynasty. Like, you talk about our family, like Colin's Colin, and anyone who's listened to this probably knows who Colin is. But my father, Keith Abbott, is a softball Newfoundland Hall of Famer, and he's all over the record books. He was a middle infielder. Actually, he played second for 100 years, and John Hill played first base on a team. And then the third baseman on that team was my uncle, Vern Abbott, and he's the oldest of the Abbott boys. And he's a softball Newfoundland Hall of Famer. And then their sister, Valerie, my aunt, is also a softball Newfoundland Hall of Famer. So once it seemed my playing career wasn't going to get me into the Hall of Fame, I decided to try another path, and maybe I can do enough broadcasting that somebody will let me in one of these days. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Honestly, like, once you guys all started traveling on the weekends, the Ezekals and you guys and Colin and Ward and now it's there's so many guys, you can't even keep track of them all. And once I saw you guys enjoying all that international stuff, I wanted to be a part of it. And I remember I came to Kitchener, I think it was 2006, Hilly, where you were with Aspen, and I took in the tournament, and that was the first time I had seen the ISC in person, and I absolutely loved it, and I loved everything about it. Like, I loved the huge bear tent in the outfield. Like, I used to sit there from first pitch in the morning till last pitch at in the morning, most nights, and absolutely loved it. So once I got a taste of that, then it was, okay, I'm not going to be able to play at this level. Like, I've been to a couple of senior nationals as like the 17th guy in the roster. I'm batting 500 at the Canadian Nationals, by the way.
I think that's and Softball Canada's aware of that too, Abby. They got that. They got that written down there somewhere. I know it for a fact. Well,
I don't know if 2 at bats is enough to qualify, but I am batting 500.
But now that you bring it up, Hilly, I think you were mentioning earlier when we were talking off air about. I think Abby is somewhere in record book somewhere along the way, isn't he?
Yeah, well, you ever hear the story how Gretzky and his brother are the highest scoring brother combo all time in the NHL, right? So it got me thinking. I was like, Abbott's. And I googled the Abbott's on the NL Fast Pitch website, and it's like there's a slew of them. I said there must be some kind of record here in the old history book. So anyway, I got to scrolling and dinged up Gerald Goss, and sure enough, by you and yourself and Colin, under the family section, have the highest ever intentional walks in the St. John Senior League history. Colin have 85, and Christopher have 1.
Who the fuck intentionally walked me? What happened?
We're still trying. I haven't got that far back yet. I'm trying to find the game sheet of what happened.
There's only one way that ever happened, and that was somebody was trying to put the force on in extra innings. That is the only way
extra innings,
ever happened.
Could have been runners on second and third. Yeah, I think so.
But you must be asked that all. It'd be we got to talk about Colin. What you on here? It's but you must get that all the time when you started attending these events. Started broadcasting some of these events, going when you're playing at the senior nationals. When people hear the name Abbott around the ballpark, it must have been something that you probably had to answer a few questions more than once, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't great for him because I just put a stain on his name. He absolutely tarnished his legacy. But Colin, it's really funny because Colin's only 12 years older than I am, but he's my uncle. He's my father's youngest brother. So he's actually closer in age to me than he is to my father. So growing up, I always idolized him anyway. Like, I didn't know how good he was, and I didn't know where he stood in the the pantheon of fast pitch, and it doesn't get talked about much, but he was also drafted to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He was an outstanding hockey player. So I distinctly remember my Aunt Valerie, his sister, taking me as a child to Old Memorial Stadium in St. John's and Prince of Wales Arena, and watching him play high school hockey. And all I ever wanted to do when I was like 4 or 5 years old was play for the Prince of Wales collegiate hockey team, because Colin did, and it was so cool, and the cheerleaders and all that stuff, right? And again, when you're growing up in St. John's and Newfoundland, you don't you don't know, especially at that time in the late 80s, like you didn't know that there was anything else out there anyway, right? That was the ultimate. So Colin always kind of held that place for me. And then when I watched him and his softball career go where it did, I mean, it was absolutely outstanding. But, you know, to answer your question about do I get it? I mean, yes. I mean, it's you know, we've been mistaken for the same person. We must have been sitting down at the time. That's the only thing I can figure there. We could share a helmet. That's the only thing.
That's amazing in itself. That you guys
10-gallon beef bucket.
Couple of the biggest melons you'll ever find, for sure. But I mean, I was always just proud, and I never could. I mean, even if I had worked out and did my training, said my prayers, and eat my vitamins like Hulk Hogan, I don't think I ever would have reached the levels that he did in the game. So it was a losing battle, and it was probably one that I shouldn't have tried to fight. But anyway, you know, going to these events and stuff, it's all, you know, I see the reverence that people have for what he's done for the game. And to me, he's family. So, you know, he's just Colin. And I'm very, very fortunate to have grown up in a family where one of my family members is one of the best in the world to ever do something, and to see that from the inside, and mostly how humble he is about it. You know, one of the things that my grandmother always says is that you'd never know that Colin won a tournament or hit the winning home run or, you know, hit 20 home runs in a weekend or whatever he would do back in the day, because he wouldn't talk about it. He'd never take the credit for it. And that's the biggest thing that always stands out to me when it comes to talking about Colin. He knows he's good. He's confident. He knows the game inside out, but he would never tell you how good he is. He leaves that up to other people. And I think that was always something that I tried to take from him.
Well, what was that quote you told us about how his brothers viewed him as a hitter?
Oh,
compared to the rest of the world.
So if anyone knows our family, you know that most social events, and I guess pretty much anyone in Newfoundland, most social events, there's usually a case of beer or two thrown on the table, and you kind of start needling each other and everything. And that's one of the beautiful things about being from Newfoundland, is that it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, someone will take the piss out of you. Like, it doesn't matter if you cured cancer, your friends and family aren't going to treat you any differently. It doesn't matter. So Colin's renowned, and Malali, I know you especially have really taken to this part of the game and picking pitchers and knowing what's coming before it happens. And his brothers look at him and they're like, you're just a cheater. Like, get up there and hit the ball. Like, anyone can hit it if they know what's coming, you know? And so they'll look at him and many nights. And our friend Lee Coase, he gets an absolute charge out of this conversation. Like, you know, nobody in their right mind would ever go up to Colin and call him a cheater. Right. But his brothers sure do. Right. They used to play with the old aluminum, you know, bottle bats and the hard white Spaldings and chop it through the middle of the field. And they just think Colin's a cheater because he knows what's coming.
Oh, man. Well, I just want to dig into that for a second. Luckily, somehow on YouTube, there's been kind of a surge of these old games from the 90s being posted up on YouTube, whether they're ISC travel tournaments and games from that, or if it's Pan Am games or ISF. So getting to go on and see some of these guys, because right now our games go up and you could watch them the next day, or people who follow us get to see it. But we had to follow what Colin was doing back in the day on Al's Fastball. You might read it in the paper. You never got to see it live when we're or online. So got to go on and see him on some of these YouTube videos, and you see him there in that stoic stance. Sure enough, the first game that I throw on, right, and it's not a Colin Abbott montage by any means, but I fast forward, right? I want to get to Abby's first at bat. Second pitch, because he's not swinging at the first one. Second pitch, the announcers are hyping him up as you know, Barry Bonds or whoever a fast pitch, and boom, gone. Like, Jesus, right? The first game you get to see on YouTube, sure enough, he shows up and hits a home run. But when you talk about the picking pitchers, that's when, before you knew what it was, and then you kind of understand it a little bit, it just shows you what a different level he was operating on. And then you try and emulate that as you go along. But you know, from a pick and pitcher standpoint, and for people who may not be as familiar with it, really it's while you're in the batter's box, you're looking out before the pitcher delivers the ball while they're getting their sign or getting their grip. They do different things on different pitches. They may wiggle their glove on a drop ball, or they may look down on a changeup, or bring their glove up higher on a rise ball, or things like this. But one of the ones and Colin had everybody, but there's a legendary story about when he was playing with Team Canada and they were playing against Japan in an ISF game, playoff game. And it was 0-0, and Colin got up and he had the pitcher on the muscle in their forearm. So whenever he gripped the rise ball, the muscle in the forearm would come up. And he got up, hit a home run, a solo home run. The next inning, and from there on out, the Japanese pitcher came out with long sleeve shirts on, and the game ended up being 1-0. He hit the home run based on that, and it's just a Colin Abbott story for me. That's what sets this guy apart. And not only that, you had the ability to pick pitchers, but you had the ability to use that information in an ISF playoff game and hit a solo home run that ends up being the game-winning home run. It's just unreal when you talk about picking pitchers and how Colin was kind of head and shoulders above everybody else.
No, yeah, the old saying that he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers or whatnot. And I know, Jason, that you had the opportunity to ride shotgun with him for a few years with the farm, and I mean, I can't even imagine how that must have impacted your career.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, but I'm sure I drove him nuts in the flight from St. John's to Toronto, just like asking him 1,000 questions. And he's there sat down trying to read his book and all this stuff. And I'm just picking his brain on this guy, that guy. But you talk about the picking pitchers and not only talking about the different picks, but like teaching you how to do it and what to look for and where on the pitcher's body to look and passing that information. Like you might not even be on his team. You know, you could be about to play this pitcher in another game and he'd let you know. And I say, hey, like, you know, this is a little something I picked up here and just passing that on to help you out in that game. But I mean, you know, one of the greatest hitters to ever swing a bat. And of course, like I just literally picked his brain on every question I could think of at the art of hitting.
Well, and so I back to him. No, I think you did okay. Back to what I was talking about with my grandmother, with his mother, and him not talking about it. Maybe I wish he had talked about it a bit more, because I was just up there trying to hit the ball. Like, hey, buddy, like maybe give your nephew a fucking couple of tips, you know. But
you had the sense.
I was okay for a bit. I didn't put the work in. Plain and simple. But I also didn't have that knowledge.
I want to dig into kind of your experience and your journey from what we talked about so far to getting, you know, you're the voice of ISC, WBSC, Canadian Senior Men's Nationals tournaments, and you're traveling around now as in your own right, very well established, credible voice for the game, which in its own right is huge in growing the game, because the platforms that are available right now for us to grow the game, we need to be using, and we need guys like you who are knowledgeable, who are entertaining, who are willing to sacrifice and put in the time it takes to hone your craft and then be available to do it. But you have a very unique and incredible story yourself. But how did you get into broadcasting in general, and how did you get to where you are right now within the men's fast pitch softball, and also the things that you're doing on the hockey front?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a crazy story, and you know, when I stop to think about it, sometimes I just kind of shake my head. So I went to university in the early 2000s. It took me 7 years to do a 4-year business degree.
Congrats, doctor.
You know, I wasn't really interested in school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after school. I knew I enjoyed sports, and I knew I enjoyed hockey and softball, and those were the things that made me feel alive, and those were the things that I love to do. Of course, you can't get paid to do those things professionally for the most part. Especially in St. John's, I wasn't going to get paid, you know, $100,000 a year to coach a hockey team or to, at that point, I wasn't doing any broadcasting. So, you know, I kind of bounced around for a few years, man, and I was kind of rudderless. And, in early 2014, I was probably at the low point of my life, and things were not going well for me, and I didn't really have a plan or a future, or didn't know what I was going to do. So I had started doing just some, again, because I was around the sports and I enjoyed them, I had started doing some just kind of fun broadcast color commentary stuff on streams of like minor hockey tournaments or whatever I could do, because I absolutely loved it. That was something that made me feel excited. Like I loved getting behind the microphone and talking about the game. And I was always a captain. I was always a coach. I felt like, even though physically I wasn't able to play at the level where I probably could have eventually, my mind knew the game and saw the game and read the game very well. So I started doing some kind of freelance broadcast gigs, and people liked me. And I did the World Ball Hockey Championships in St. John's on just like, the local Bell free stream, and got some good response out of that. And then more opportunities came. People were like, well, hey, do you want to do this? There's a guy in St. John's. His name is Tristram Clark, and he runs a video production company, and he had the contract with Bell, and he and I got along well. And he liked that I was dependable more than anything. If he called me, I'd show up, and he kept giving me gigs. And it went from, the minor hockey stuff to the ball hockey. And then we did the Newfoundland Rock Rugby. We did AUS championships because Bell had the contract there. So, the Atlantic University sports swimming and soccer, and just kind of kept building and building. And then finally, he goes, we've got the 2014 baseball nationals. And they were in St. John's. He's like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yes. These are the sports that I love. Like I can do swimming, but I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know a breaststroke from breast meat at Mary Brown's. I don't know the difference.
And it must be exciting to do a soccer game too. Like Jesus. And the grass grew another millimeter.
Yeah. Then they started playing on synthetic turf, and I didn't even have that. So while we're lining up and getting ready to do the baseball, he goes, now in Charlottetown, they've got the senior men's fast pitch, and we don't have anyone in Atlantic Canada who knows the game, but I guess you do. Yep. So I called the championship game of the Canadian Senior Baseball Championship at St. Pat's in St. John's, went to the airport, flew to Halifax, drove to Charlottetown, and did the 2014 tournament. The two Newfoundland teams met in the final, and I was on the microphone for that, which is very, very cool. Yeah. A lot of fortunate things happened that weekend, but I also got myself in hot water too, because I learned quickly that week that a lot of people are listening. So when I first started, I was tough on umpires, man. I was really tough, and I because I hate umpires and referees. I hate them. For the most part, good people, but I when they're not doing a good job, it drives me absolutely crazy. Right. But there's a lot of good umpires out there, and I've grown up in that regard too, much like I'm sure all of us have. Yeah. They're just out there doing their best.
Well, you and I have. Hilly is still, when it comes to the umpires, man. You're still a crapshoot when it comes to you, Hilly.
I'm still pitching here, so cut me some slack.
Yeah. So anyway, make a long story short, that was my first real experience to the softball community. And, as you guys know, got really good feedback. And I have to, especially you, Steve, I remember you saying to me right away, I got to put you in touch with Blair Setford. And I didn't know Blair at the time at all. I had heard his voice, and even something as simple as that, having watched the ISC streams, thinking, wow, that would be totally cool to do, was still a world away from me. So I think it was 2 years later that the ISC tournament was in Quad Cities in 2016. And Kyle Smith, I don't know if Kyle had started a new job or he just had a baby or whatever it was. I don't remember, but he couldn't make it. So it was just going to be Blair and Joe Todd and Lance Wynn heading to do the entire tournament. They needed another guy. So Blair called me up and again, not a big budget thing, but he's like, I'll get you there. I'll feed you and we'll get you drinks and we'll figure it out. And that was good enough for me. Like, I think that year too, it had become like a scaled down version. There's a problem with the production company and blah, 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 sponsorship and the whole 9 yards. So, that was my first experience with it, in 2016. At that level, working with those guys and kind of learning to see how they do stuff from the ballpark broadcast and the ISC broadcast realm. And yeah, it was great. And then of course, so I my first gig, I go and the two Newfoundland teams play in the final, and you guys win in Charlottetown, and that's all well and good. And then I go to that tournament, and another Newfoundlander and Shane Boland hits a walk-off home run for the Gators to win. And I know you guys probably don't want to talk about that.
Go.
Yeah. But you know, it's so great for Shane and to be there for that moment. And you know, I really do think that what's happened over the years is that so many of the guys from home have been key contributors in all of these games, and the fact that I know them and their families, that's helped you know, me bring the listener or the viewer closer to the game. And I think just because they're in such prominent roles and I can have a little story to share, or I have that just connection, I think that's helped as well. And then, so I'm sitting in in that little tower there in Quad Cities in the middle of the fields. And I get a message from Jim Flanagan with Ballpark Broadcasting. And he said, "Kris, you were great. I see a white horse galloping in your future," was the line he wrote to me. Or galloping into your future.
Yeah.
And then I, you know, so from there, you know, then it kind of rolled from there. I went to Whitehorse to do the WBSC men's, following year in Prince Albert for the junior men's. Then, you know, getting to go to Prague, which is a city I absolutely fell in love with in 2019. And then we got home from there and they asked us to go to Irvine, California to do the, you know, women's junior worlds, or under 19, whatever it was called at the time. Yeah, so I mean, last year was the first year I didn't get to see parts of the world that I've never seen before, because of softball broadcasting. And I look forward to doing it again when the time comes. But yeah, it's been quite a wild ride, and much like my entire life, it was kind of a right place, right time, and somebody took a chance on me, and somebody liked what I did, and you know, I guess it goes back to taking a little bit of a risk every now and again, and sometimes it pays off.
What I love the most too about your broadcast, you're doing a phenomenal job, and I love listening to you. Even you know, I'm not even watching our own games, the replays, but like other games, is that the fact, like you said, that you know, some of these, a lot of newbies are spread out on different teams and that and whatnot. But I mean, you've played the game yourself. You're teammates with a lot of us, especially the Newfoundlanders. But like, you know, the guys, like, you know, the little tidbits, the little things, right? The interesting stories, the stuff that's not necessarily on the diamond, you know, the other little things. And I think that just adds so much to the broadcast, and you know, to the listener. It's just like little things that get you, right? Like little catches.
Yeah, that's super important. So I glossed over, you know, the whole hockey broadcasting and TV work that I did, which also started in 2014. But, you know, that was spawned by the success I had doing things like the men's nationals that summer. And then that fall, I got hired in Halifax at Eastlink TV to be their lead play-by-play guy. And honestly, I had no business being hired by a TV station. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just showing up and talking about the sports that I knew, which I guess qualifies you now in hindsight. But I learned an awful lot from the people there. It was really on-the-job training. There is a guy named Steve McLean who was a producer there, became a real good close friend of mine. And he taught me an awful lot about what's important. You're not just turning on the camera and talking about the game. It's really important to do your research and find out stories, or find out, you know, where these guys are in their life, or find out what they do for a living, or anything, right? Anything that adds a little more information for the viewers. So, you know, Steve and all the folks at Eastlink really helped prepare me for that. And then, you know, I've moved on from there since, but it's really important to do more than say that was a ball, that was a strike, and it's a ground ball to second. It's, you know, it's really, it's crucial to bring people inside.
I know you say it was right place, right time, people taking a chance at you, but I look at that similar to a player's journey. You got to put the work in that no one sees. You got to fail. You got to bet on yourself and take a risk, like you said, and then just keep showing up. And for us, it's playing tournaments and getting out there trying to play well, and then make those relationships, and maybe you get on a better team or you get a better opportunity. And then you continue to grow. The reason I bring that up, when you chronicle in 2014, where you weren't really sure what was next personally and professionally, to then talking about how quickly things started to snowball in terms of opportunities that you were getting just 3 years later, where you're really well established. It also speaks to, and from a player's perspective, when you get to top level, it's international, but it's a very small community and close-knit community that once you're entrenched in it, a lot of these opportunities come up. And when I hear you tell your story, I get the sense that it's a similar situation in that regard, is it not?
Yeah, it's totally a small community, and it's a privilege to be a part of that community. So, the way I look at it, short form, is that, you heard me call a game. You told Blair I was pretty good. Blair needed a guy. Blair calls me. I do a pretty good job for him. Jim Flanagan, who is an OG when it comes to this, doing games on a radio broadcast, basically with no video back in the day, terrible streaming and bandwidth. Jim likes what I do. He has the contract for the WBSC events. I go there. I do a decent job for him. He likes me. He brings me back. And here we are today, right? So, yeah, it's certainly that small world. And then, to top it all off, I do that event in Irvine, California. And Steve Sabrin, who's a regular part of our broadcast team, people would know that name. There was a huge event, the event in California, and we were down a couple of bodies. Neither, Joe, Blair, Kyle, none of them were there. So, it was Lance and Chopper, Jason Gerbys, and I, and Steve. And then, we had to fill out the roster. And my buddy Cecil Wright came from Halifax, and a guy named Chris Clark came with Steve Sabrin from Ontario. And so I make the connection with Chris. And then this is in, that's in August of 2019. And in September of 2019, Chris goes, "Hey, I know you're living in Halifax, but my buddy just let me know the Hamilton Bulldogs need a TV play-by-play guy." So, and that's the Ontario Hockey League, junior hockey. And so he goes, "If you're interested, I can put you in touch." And then, a few things happened in my life. I ended up needing to come to Southern Ontario, and now I'm also the TV play-by-play guy for the Hamilton Bulldogs. So, if you work hard and you do a good job,
man.
Yeah, you work hard, you do a good job, and people notice. It works out, I guess. I mean, but I don't toot my own horn when it comes to those things. But I mean, I think it's a perseverance. I think it's doing a good job. I think it's maintaining good relationships with people, being humble, and taking opportunities when they come your way.
How tough is it to call a hockey game, like a fast-paced hockey game? You got all the Europeans coming over, and Fedorov and Chachov and Tikov, and they're passing the puck. It's happening so fast. It's not like ball in the outside corner. So Shane was drunk in the beer tent last night, and it got to be tough, man. Like, how the fuck do you do it?
I've never seen Shane drunk in the bear tent. That's for sure.
Different Shane.
Well, you must be blind.
So it's totally different. It's a real good point you bring up, Hilly, because calling hockey versus calling softball versus swimming versus cheerleading, which I've also done, like, it's all different, right?
Is that on YouTube?
I gotta see that. You gotta have a clip somewhere. You gotta send that to us.
If you're in an area that has Eastlink, it's probably on demand. I think it was the 20. God, it was either 2015 or 2016 Nova Scotia High School cheerleading championship, and somehow I got assigned to do that one.
Can I give what I think it would sound like? Just indulge me for a second.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Eastlink. I'm Kris Abbott, your host, here for the exciting Halifax, Nova Scotia cheerleading competition, and we're here in the finals. We have Acadia Elementary coming up, and they're got a banger of a routine coming out here. Well known across Canada, this routine is turning heads, and here they go. They start. Susie's coming out. Oh, she's gonna go up to the top of the pyramid. Oh shit. Oh shit. Down goes the pyramid. Like, how the fuck? Like, what do you even do?
So
when you're trying to do cheerleading.
So for sports like that, and volleyball is another one. You just let it play out. You don't say a word. First thing you do is you get a good analyst who knows the sport. So the cheerleading one went more like this. Hey, welcome back to County Arena in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Here's the team from Sydney Academy. And, their song is going to be, whatever, Pump Up the Jam by Technotronic. And here we go. And then it's more like you just sit back, let it happen. And then you go, all right, Jennifer, tell me what just happened out there. Yeah.
Smart
but
play.
It's totally different. And, you have to approach them differently. I love calling ball because there are those dead moments where you can have a conversation, where you can analyze one pitch for 35 seconds, In hockey, there's plenty of times where something happens and goes by the boards, and I want to talk about it, but the game doesn't allow you because it keeps going without that moment. So that's one of the differences. But calling ball is a whole lot of fun.
And I find too, like you can have guests in the booth for both sports, but like guests in the booth for ball is a good filler, because you have lots of time to chit chat about whatever. But hockey, you're always like, you're talking to the guy and then you had to go, oh, and he dumped it in, or big hit, or he scores in the middle of a conversation type thing, because it happens so fast. Like, it got to be,
so with hockey,
impossible.
It is. With hockey, I always tell the people I'm working with that once the puck comes over the blue line, you shut up and I'm taking care of it. And then if the puck comes outside the blue line, then you can jump in and the time between the whistles is yours. So you have to plan. You have to plan for those things. It doesn't just happen, right? So, once a team is on the attack, once they get over the blue line, you shut up, let me take it. If, say it's a power play, talk, and then if the team on the penalty kill fires the puck down the ice, then, you have that 12 to 15 seconds as they wander back to get it to fill in with what you'd like to say.
I know you did. I listened to it a little while ago. You got on a podcast with the Ray and Dregs podcast with Ray Ferraro and Darren Dreger. So I know it was kind of work related, and you were talking about some other things. But did you get to hang around, pick his brain a bit? Like Ferraro obviously is a big broadcaster and does World Juniors and NHL and all that stuff. Like, did you get to chat outside of that, or?
So it's absolutely insane. So again, little boy growing up in Portugal Cove, Newfoundland, had 5 channels on my television. Now living in Toronto, working with an online gaming company in Coolbet, and that's opened a lot of doors for me to do a lot of cool things. Every Friday morning I do a half hour on Fan 590, which, like, what?
That's insane.
How?
Wow.
How? I don't understand it. I'm on the biggest sports radio station in Canada as an expert, talking sports on the Fan. How does that happen? Like, I'd have to wait 30 minutes just to get on with Patty Daly on the morning show. So there's that. And then, one of the partnerships we have is with the Ray and Dregs podcast. And again, boys, this story, it's much like we've been talking about. So I'm in Toronto for a week and I'm driving around, and so this is the biggest thing. You're in Toronto, you get TSN and Sportsnet radio in your car. You don't have to stream it from a computer. It's just there. And I hear this Ray and Dregs podcast, and obviously Darren Dreger and Ray Ferraro are as big as it gets in this country in hockey broadcasting. And I don't hear any sponsors or anything like that. So I literally go home, I go on rayanddregs.com, click contact us, and say, hey, what would it take to become a sponsor of your show? A day later, guy gets back to me, sets up a phone call. By the end of the week, Coolbet's a sponsor of the Ray and Dregs podcast. Insane.
Wicked.
And then probably 6 months into the agreement, they had seen some of my stuff and they go, hey, Kris, you want to come on the show with the guys? and talk about odds or whatever. Yeah, I do.
Fucking right, I do.
And so even before that, so maybe a month into the deal, their producer, so the show was run out of BC, but their producer comes to Toronto and he's like, hey, do you want to meet? And people who know downtown Toronto may be familiar with the Distillery District, and I live in the area. So it's like, sure, let's meet at the Mill Street Brew Pub, which is literally on Mill Street. That's where it comes from, the beer. And I walk in and here's Darren Dreger sitting here. And I'm like, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. So, we got to meet and nice guy and we got along. And, Ryan Winterton, who's a player with the Hamilton Bulldogs, lives on his street. So we, again, connections and talking and networking. So, fast forward a few months and now I'm doing their show every week. Like I'm tomorrow morning I'm on there and it's just absolutely insane. And I can pick up my phone and text Darren Dreger while he's doing shows on TSN, which is absolutely nuts. And to answer your question about Ray Ferraro, just a brilliant mind. And I do get to chat with him from time to time off camera. And man, he's just sharp. He's as good as there is. And it's really cool to be able to work with those guys. Yeah, it's outstanding.
Man, that's incredible. It's just another feather in the cap, but again, goes back to opportunities presenting itself. But you chose to pick up, not the phone, you chose to reach out to them. And just by taking that initiative, look what came from it, man. It's that's awesome to see. Speaking of podcast sponsorships, we picked up the phone and called you this time. I don't know why you didn't come knocking on our door, but at least you answered when we reached out. But we're really, really honored to be associated with you and with Coolbet from a sponsorship standpoint. For us, very lucky to be able to have that connection with you and to do that. But we just wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you for that and the support. It means a lot to us, and it's really cool of you to do that, man.
Well, you're welcome. And it's just one of these things that when you're in a position to help people you care about and people who are doing something that you think is positive, then you do that. And it's not entirely unselfish because you have a listenership and a group that I want as customers. So it works both ways. So, but yeah, it's exciting, man. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be in a position to sponsor, you guys doing a podcast or Ray Ferraro and Darren Dreger doing a podcast. See our logo on the boards in the Calgary Flames home arena. Like it's kind of wild, and it's been a crazy year and a half. And Coolbet's doing really well, and I'm proud of what we've been able to build. So it's only up from here.
So I guess a part of the sponsorship deal is you don't reimburse the money we lose when we play personally on Coolbet. Because one of those slot machines, boy, it's just me and Hilly got in there a couple of weeks ago, and I felt like calling and saying, buddy, give us our money back, will you?
Well, I can't. I mean, that would probably, I wouldn't be in my position for very long if I did do that, but keep playing. They'll pay out eventually.
Oh, that's excellent, man. I didn't just through knowing you and seeing some things that, you're helping us with the podcast, but even a little closer to home from fundraising perspectives, helping young teams and even our teams going to nationals, multiple provinces hosting poker tournaments on there. And you've been a huge supporter of that, actually bringing in some celebrity players to bring some fanfare to it. I think you have Matthew Barnaby on there on a few of them. And it's just really cool that you're using the opportunities that you've created for yourself to help other people. So I think we're proud of you for that and appreciate it. And I think it's something that you should be really proud of, man, because it's you're welcome. I mean, I'm certainly not Peter Pan. I'm just facilitating some things and I have a little bit of access and it's nice to be able to give back. I mean, the sport of fast pitch has done so much for me.
the province and the people of Newfoundland and even in Nova Scotia. I know the guys from the Mastodons have done a few events. So listen, I'm happy to be able to help. I really appreciate people choosing to come play with us. I mean, there's a lot of competitors out there. So, if the fact that I'm there helps, then all the better. But it's a good partnership, and that's what you do, right? If you make things happen that are mutually beneficial and everybody's happy and rising tide lifts all boats, for sure. But you don't need. It's an exciting time, boys. It's great to see you guys doing your own thing, and it's great to see Randy Frame doing his thing, and Chris Hopewell, and it's great to see Dean Holine doing his podcast. So I mean, you talk about how to grow the game. Getting more exposure to it in this regard is certainly one way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that before we let you go and wind her down, I had written down, and it's getting back to the traveling and being at these events within the ISC. And so we know from a player's perspective what it takes to prepare, what it's like when you're at one of these major events. You get into a routine, you get in a schedule. Hilly's been my roommate, right? So I got, you have that, Hilly, right? I got to deal with all his bullshit when, you got to go. It's like getting your homework checked when you go in. Did you put everything away right? And everything's on a schedule. From your perspective, I'm not sure what it's like, but I know what the routine is. But from that regard, what's your experience like attending these events? Do you have an annoying roommate? Like, do you have your version of Hilly to me? And then what's it like from a preparation? And walk us through a day or a tournament from your perspective.
Well, no tournament's the same, that's for sure. Staying in the Hilton in Southern California, having your own room was a lot different than staying in what I can only presume was a former Soviet prison in rural Czech Republic.
I saw you standing on that balcony when we pulled in the bus and said, holy shit, that's where you're staying.
So, it's different experiences for sure. While we're talking about the Czech Republic, first of all, I fell in love with the place. Like, I can't wait to go back. Prague and downtown is insane. Canadians and Newfoundlanders especially like to think that nobody can party like us. Well, that was certainly a eye-opening experience that the people in Prague outdo all of us. I mean, the bars are open until 5 a.m. There's flames shooting around. Absolutely, absolutely insane. And when it comes to talking about preparation and scheduling, you guys are at the mercy of the tournament schedule makers. And I know that you can pick your spots every now and again when you're on the road. When it comes to broadcasters, we can kind of do the same. Hey, I don't have the 9 a.m. game. All right, maybe I'm going to explore the downtown Prague scene on a Wednesday night and see what happens. And then I don't have to physically perform. I just have to get through a broadcast the next day. So, I'm as professional as I can be, but I don't like to let those opportunities slide by either. So, if you're going to, fly with with the Owls, you got to fly with the Eagles, that kind of deal. So, learning to manage that has been a lot of fun, but anyone who knows me knows that I like a good time. So, I try to make sure, how often do you get a free trip to the Czech Republic and one of the best party spots in the world? You're going to check it out. But from actually doing the broadcasts, it's one of these things that your preparation can only go so far in terms of research. One of the things that's always worked for me, no matter what sport I've done or what league I've worked in, is just the banking of knowledge over time. So just like you guys get into the box against a pitcher that you've seen 100 times, if I'm calling a game for a guy for the 100th time, it's a lot easier, and I can call back to things he's done before. I think to some of the guys from Argentina that I hadn't seen before, that I saw at the ISC in 2016 and in Whitehorse in 2017. And then when they went on that unbelievable run in 2019, we certainly had a lot more to draw on because we were there to see what happened. Like, look at Huemo Mata, for example, and what he did in Prague. He was unhittable. And you look 2 years before in Whitehorse and he couldn't get on the field. So, when you have those experiences to draw on, it's super critical. So that's what I try and do. Go back and look at, as tournaments go on, go back and kind of see how guys are doing and watch as much as possible. That's where I've gotten success when it comes to anything. When, right now with the sports betting analyst stuff, with the broadcast stuff, I just watch a lot. I take it all in. I watch as much as I can. And I've always, been someone who tried to view sports critically. And I try and watch and gain as much as I can about a player or about a team or about a tendency, even an umpire or referee for that matter. So, that's what I try to do. And then the day-to-day stuff when you're talking about being at these events, it's much like you guys, I'm sure. Wake up, get a bite to eat. We end up spending long days at the park. If you're lucky, you can get home for a nap, but usually you only get one game off. So, you go over to the media area, you grab whatever snacks they've got there and drink a lot of water and maybe you sneak a beer during the day as well to stay hydrated. So, that's it. And in terms of roommates, I've been fortunate to have my own room. Like we had our own rooms in Whitehorse. We had our own rooms in Irvine. Have my own room in Prague, but that's because I had to go down and Google translate an argument with the Czech-speaking lady at the front desk who tried to put Lance and I it was a room with 3 single beds. Like I'm a big guy. I can barely fit in a single bed and I definitely can't roll over. And we were going to be there for the week and they tried to put Lance and I in this room. So anyway, it worked out that we got our own room. Then I had myself one room with 3 single beds. So I just picked which bed I slept in each night. Hoping there was a breeze because there was no air conditioning in that concrete building. Oh God. Yeah. It's a different place. And then I roomed with Setford one time. I don't know if it's a big secret, but Blair snores like a freight train. After I used to as well. Well, Malali, this is a good story actually, because you and I roomed together in Owen Sound in whatever year that was, 2012-ish, 11.
Yeah.
And I probably ruined your tournament by snoring. And then like 2 years later, I start wearing a CPAP machine and I sleep like an absolute angel. But
you didn't then. I still
rooming with a guy who shakes the curtains snoring is not not a great experience.
No. So see, Hilly, I'll give you that. You don't snore unless you're buckled. So I'll give you that.
But other than that, and I've roomed with Steve Sabrin, who's he's an absolute pleasure to room with. Steve is Steve's a quiet guy. I enjoyed rooming with Steve, although sometimes it's hard to get him out of the restaurant. Steve is one of the most social guys you could ever meet. We call him the dentist from The Hangover. He's so mild-mannered and professional, but he's the one. He's the one most likely. He's the one out of our group most likely to come back with a face tattoo from one of these events. That's what I think.
That's wicked.
Going back to what you said there about the getting familiar with the players and stuff like that, and that's what I love about these broadcasts. And I think they're getting better. Is that ballpark radio? Is that you guys still call ballpark radio?
Branding is ballpark broadcasting now because
ballpark broadcasting,
there's so much radio, right? Yeah. But it started as ballpark radio, yeah.
So, but like you guys are a mainstay now in the fast pitch scene, especially in the international fast pitch scene. And I feel like it would be hard to bring in a new crew, especially when you're traveling to all these different places. And I mean, let's face it, over in Czech Republic, if you guys weren't there, like none of their broadcasters would know the guys from Canada or Australia. You know what I mean? If we had never been there before, I feel like that'd be a tough gig and a lot to ask. But I love it how you guys, don't matter if you're in Prague, Czech Republic or St. John's, Newfoundland, everybody knows, all the players and especially the top players and the teams, and you have that insight. And I think it just adds to the broadcast big time. Yeah, no, it's important. And the problem becomes budgetary then, right? Like you've got to bring these guys all over the world. So for example, when it comes time for New Zealand, I don't know how many of us will actually go. Now we've got Chopper there on the ground and he's doing a wonderful job. As much in Canada as we have that rivalry with the New Zealanders, Chopper's done a wonderful job in his country of expanding the broadcast capabilities, bringing new people on board and bringing them under our banner of ballpark broadcasting. So, I'm still hopeful that I'll get to that tournament.
I don't know what will happen in terms of that, but I agree. I think the product when our group is there, just because of that inherent knowledge and contacts and even who to go talk to between games, to get a little tidbit of information, and who you can talk to and who you shouldn't talk to. Like, Derek Mason is going to be calm and measured in his responses. Some guys need to have that space, that knowledge alone, or knowing that you can always go talk to Nick Shales no matter what. Those things are important. Yeah, it's really cool. I know, and we're fully aware that our opinions on this are 100% biased. But we get to see one of our best buddies broadcasting, but the quality of it speaks for itself. So there's nothing biased about, the product that you guys put out, and it's great to see it. It adds a ton to the game, to those events. And I know that the fast pitch viewership that tune in really have their experience enhanced by having that whole ballpark broadcasting crew bringing it to them and being the voices of the game. So that's awesome. In our theme song, right at the end, there's Kris Abbott clip of the dust up. There you go. Podcast name drop again. Between the championship game with Team Newfoundland, the Galway Hitmen, and the Bulldog team, when Matty Waugh ran over Ryan Boland. You were on the call for that. So before we wrap it up, I want to know, what was that like for you calling that once that all just kind of heat of the moment? Walk us through it. So that's 2016, and I was still kind of early on in my time with the boys from Ballpark Broadcasting and the ISC network. But from the perspective of that, so we're at the Caribou Complex. It's absolutely jammed, like the most people I had ever seen in the park. You guys were on the field for both of these, but I think there was more there that day than there was in 07 in the final. And 95, I was pretty young. Jason, I think you were the bat boy. But to me, I think that game in 2016 was the most people I had ever seen in that park. Do you guys agree, or am I wrong there?
Could have been. I mean, I know we played in 07. Yeah. There's definitely 4,000 or 5,000 people there, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you have two local teams in the final, it's a crapshoot when you go to these nationals anyway. You hope that come Championship Sunday, there's going to be a host team there, because that's where they draw the fans. In 07, it was rammed as well. It was East Coast versus West Coast. We never won one. So beautiful day. The weather plays a huge part in whether people are going to come out or not. But luckily for us, if we're there, people are coming out. So both of them stand out in terms of the amount of people there, but it was a different vibe, right? It's everybody pulling for you in 07, and then we lose. And then it's basically split down the middle, or in 2016, two teams there. So it's packed because there's two teams from Newfoundland in the final, but the vibe is different. You got family members booing you in some aspects. I know Ryan Boland talks about it all the time. He's squat behind home plate, and he got, I think, his aunt and uncle they're booing him. Right? So it's hilarious. But yeah, to answer your question on it, in 2016, it was a special atmosphere to be on the field to play at home, knowing that Newfoundland already won the Nationals. It's just a matter of who. And we were going for, I believe it was 5 in a row. So you got people that want to see history made, and then you got people who want to see the underdog come through. So it was pretty special.
So from my perspective, here's my perspective of that game. I'm still relatively new working with the guys. So that weekend, it was myself, Blair, Setford, and Lance Wynn doing the games. But so I thought it was really cool. I had no expectation to be the play-by-play guy in that game, because I was pretty new. It was the championship game, and Blair and Lance were both there. And to both of their credit, they immediately said, "No, two Newfoundland teams. You need to be the one who calls this game." So I'll be forever grateful for them, because I got to be part of this moment.
That's really cool of them.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was so. I mean, both of those guys have been outstanding to me. They really, really have. They welcomed me in right away. So here we are. All right. It's a chilly Sunday afternoon in St. John's. The park is full. You guys are like the evil empire because you're stacked and you're supposed to win. And here you've got this scrappy team where Colin Walsh has thrown like 100 innings that week, and he drags the team to the final, and it was a close game. And I guess Matty was, he plays hard. He's a bit of a shit disturber. It's not the first or last time that he's caused a collision.
No.
But you got to respect guys that play like that, because you always got to know where they are. It's the same reason with Brad Marchand. You always got to know where they are, because they're skilled, but they'll run over you if they have to. And literally, he run a collision at the plate where he runs over Ryan. And then a couple of years later, playing with you guys, of course, the incident against BC in St. Croix as well. Which I was also calling the game. So anyway, here he comes. Ball to the outfield. He was tagging from second. Is that what happened? And he I think he's Ryan Wolf maybe, trying to tag and score from second on a pop fly. And he's coming home, and then there's the big collision at the plate. And, the list of instigators on these rosters is just so Jeff Evely, Mullally, Danny Dalton, Brian Clark, none of these guys, I think even Stephen Pittman might have been on their team too, was he? None of these guys, none of these guys are turning down a racket. So instantly, here they go, and there's gloves, and you got Joey Maynard out there playing peacekeepers. Like, Joey, be careful, you're going to get yourself hurt. And it was awesome. I really wish we had multiple cameras on that event, rather than it was just kind of like one of those ones affixed to the backstop. But it was awesome. And then we had the big delay and the rules committee and the protest committee, and then I'm getting text messages from everyone in the crowd who are out in the beer tent being like, what happened, what did you see, who's out of the game, like, what's going on, God, it was just outstanding. And I don't remember a lot of the individual moments in these games. Like, Mullally, you had a huge double down the left field line, maybe drove in a run, break open the tie in that game. But those moments are there. But I just remember, the atmosphere, and I remember the people being around, and I remember that night, the celebration down at Kelly's. The guys were there from both teams. Had a great chat with Danny Williams that night, and had to thank him for everything he's done for Fast Pitch. And it really struck me, because I remember telling him my name and where I was from, and he launched into a story about how he remembered going to my grandmother's restaurant, and how he
cool.
remembered them and all that stuff, right? So just a great human. But that's what I remember from that day. I mean, I'm surprised that the fight didn't get a little more out of hand than it did. Cooler heads prevailed,
if the score if the score wasn't tied in the national final, I think it would have went downhill quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happened, it was
I think it was
0-0 game.
first,
So
first.
right out of the gate. Ali Frazier, let's go, boys! Ding, ding, ding.
Set the tone. Set the tone. But so
it was.
I think something important to remember about what happened that day is, as much as I was excited, I was not surprised, because all these players play together all the time. I mean, with the exception of Matthew Watt and a couple of imports, but 95% of these rosters play with and against each other. Like, what people may not realize is that a lot of these guys play on the same club team and probably share rides to the park most days. But there's adversity and physicality and benches clearing in the St. John's League all the time. So I was not surprised at all. It's just this time there was thousands of people there to see it, and maybe the emotion was certainly ramped up given the situation. But that could have happened on a Tuesday night in a 7-1 game with you guys on opposite teams. Yeah. Like, I remember one night we're playing and Jason's pitching for our team and Brad's batting for his team. and you guys are about to hop on a plane the next morning and go to whatever it was, ASA or ISC, and you just fucking stuck Brad. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know? Like, it doesn't matter that you guys are being compensated the next morning to go play this sport together. In some game on a Thursday night in St. John's, you weren't having it. So
No.
Well, it's either hit him or he's going to hit it out off Hilly anyway. So Hilly took the easy way out.
Yeah, Brad's betting 76 for 78 after my career. So first base was open. Get down there, buddy.
So yeah, but that was a great day.
Yeah, it's you're right, man, and I think it was great that the broadcast had you there. I know you, as much as you want to do the game, you probably want to be out in the beer tent just as much too. But if for the people listening that couldn't be there, that to have you do that made it really special. But yeah, it's really cool to have you on here, man. And one, just to get caught up with you, but to hear your story and a lot of these memories and experiences you've had. So, and we can't thank you enough for coming on and for your continued sponsorship and support of the podcast, man. It means the world to us, and can't wait till we all get together again quickly. But from a betting perspective, what do you think the odds are? What's the over under that Hilly's going to grab a half case and lotto ticket on the way home tomorrow?
Oh, I mean, you don't want
to take the under on that.
No, I'd say the odds are like minus 1,000. Is that there's still like a Marie's on the corner on the way to your place, isn't there? Marie's Mini Mart. That's the local convenience store in St. John's. So, yeah, I'm sure he'll get a half case of and split it with Marcia because he can't handle all six and go from there.
Yes, man. If they don't see him on Friday afternoons, they'll be putting him on the milk carton the next day.
I do have to get out for gas.
Excellent. Abby, awesome having you on, buddy. Thank you. And can't wait to catch up with you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, boys. I feel like we're only scratching the surface, but I'm looking at the clock and we've been chatting for a while now. So it's great. I hope people out there enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll have to do part 2 sometime.
100%, man. 100%.
Always a pleasure. Cheers, buddy.
All right, boys. We want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. Really appreciate it. And Lucas, Nick, little rum ragged to take us out.
Get up! Get out of here! I told you, Mr. Drama.
I used to be a ladies' man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once they use me.
Say bye-bye, baseball!
My mother said it was naughty, I should place in your back. But I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very nice.
And the Wally drops his glove, grabs Dalton. The benches are clearing.